Welcome back to Perspectives on Human Communication. We continue in our approach to media theories by tackling the spiral of silence theory that was developed by Elizabeth Noel Newman. Uh, the background on Noel Newman is given in your book, so I won't cover that terrain. I just want to dive right into what this theory is in a nutshell, and then tackle the three assumptions that go along with this theory. And before we dive in, I want you to think about a time recently when you were speaking with some people and you became aware of the fact that you held what might be a minority perspective. And maybe whatever the topic was, you just kind of began to listen to people and realize that you didn't think the same way that they thought. And then ask yourself, what did you do in response to that? How did you act when you found out that the perspective that you held was the minority viewpoint? And that's exactly what this theory is getting at, is how those who perceive that they hold a minority perspective, a minority opinion, spiral into silence on the issue. And we'll get into how that operates as we take a look at this theory. So the theory at a glance says that media controls what people, or at least influences what people think is the majority opinion. And there is a term that we are going to explore as we dive into this, but the idea of pluralistic ignorance. Noel Newman argued that people have a mistaken understanding of what the public's opinion really is, but it's generated because the media has such a profound effect on shaping what people think of as the majority opinion, whether or not it's actually the majority's opinion. A second idea is that the media work alongside the majority opinion, and what that does is then in turn silences the minority beliefs because of the fear of social isolation. So that fear of social isolation, which nobody really wants, or very few people really want to be isolated from interaction and not to be able to talk with people in public. So that causes them to modify or shift or hide, suppress their true beliefs. And so this is the nutshell of the theory, and we'll get into what some of the three assumptions are that are underneath that. So as an example topic, consider gun control. This has been and will continue to be a prominent social issue. The media statement might be made, or has been made, that guns kill thousands of people each year. And so if depending on how you feel about that statement, how willing are you to speak out on that particular issue? The majority view, you might feel, is that people should have to wait or pass some sort of criteria in order to purchase a gun, or even that certain kinds of guns should not be legal, should not be made available to the general public. So that might be what you think of as the majority view. Noel Newman says we come to that understanding because we have what she calls a quasi-statistical sense. And maybe there was a survey or a news report or some information that you came across that showed that people overwhelmingly support gun control laws, that we should have tougher, stricter gun control. And after each major shooting incident, whether it's a school shooting or the concert shooting in Las Vegas, that push for stricter, stronger gun control tends to ramp up and especially get airtime in the media. So as you're thinking about that issue and where you sit on that issue, what you think about it, what the theory would suggest is that people who perceive themselves to have a minority position on this, so for instance, maybe you think that guns don't actually kill people, it's bad people that kill people, they just use guns to do that. And so you would then suppress your opinion when in conversation in a public arena. Because of, and she says this is the primary driver of that fear of isolation. You don't want to be perceived as somebody who's condoning terrorist events or murder, school shootings, things like that. So you stay silent about how you feel about gun control and what the actual source of the harm is. Is it an inanimate object in a gun, or is it bad motives and opportunities for people to act badly? Okay, so that's an example of a kind of issue. So what are the assumptions that are underneath this? Some of the first assumption really can be seen in the Ash conformity experiments, and we talked about this related to an earlier theory. But the fact that, or the assumption that society threatens individuals who hold minority opinion with isolation, that you will be, and if isolation doesn't resonate with you, think of ostracize, that we would ostracize somebody or marginalize someone who has a deviant or an outlying opinion on a topic. A second assumption is that fear of marginalization, ostracization, isolation causes people to kind of look around and assess, well, what is the temperature of how people think about this issue? And we receive all kinds of information from different sources, whether it's online sources or personal observation, major media outlets. All of that goes into our processing and assessment of what the general public opinion is on the particular issue. And so some of the factors that she's come up with that she says influence our perception of public opinion is that quasi-statistical sense, and then the pluralistic ignorance. And as I said before, she defines that as the condition that people often have a mistaken understanding or an idea of what the public opinion really is. And she says that that's because the media give a disproportionate mix of viewpoints relative to their actual strength or prevalence of those viewpoints in society. And then the final assumption is that our public behavior is affected by that public opinion assessment. We've taken the temperature in our minds of what the public opinion is, and then we will either take one of two major courses or behaviors, and that one is keep silent, and the second is we would take a pushing back or deviant position and speak out, regardless of what the repercussions would be on us. However, most people will avoid discussing those topics when their viewpoint differs from the majority. So those are the three assumptions. We will dive into this theory and try to give some examples and maybe do our own little study in class of some issues on campus and in our society that maybe some people aren't willing to speak out against. I hope you see that this particular theory is super relevant to the polarized society and conversation climate that we live in right now. Everything from cancel cultures to freedom of expression to just the pluralism of ideas in civic discourse. This theory is very relevant to all of those areas. We'll talk to you very soon.